Nostradamus sat in the drawing room of Catherine de' Medici, picked up a quill, and wrote a startling prediction about her husband. The young lion will overcome the old one, hand to hand on the field of combat. His eyes will burst in their golden helmet, 2 breaks in one, followed by a merciless death. Published a full 3 years before the famous death of King Henri II of France, stabbed in the eye during a jousting competition, this passage is just one of hundreds of Nostradamus quatrains which have seemingly predicted the future. But the predictions of Nostradamus went beyond biographical details of famous individuals. According to author Mario Reading, Nostradamus went as far as to predict events into the distant future, even including the end of the world and the 3 antichrists, who would each bring us a step closer to it. Welcome to Intrigued Mind. Join us today as we look back at the life of Nostradamus and his 3 most terrifying predictions: Napoleon, Hitler, and the one still to come. According to historian Mario Reading, wars have been fought over lesser issues than the details of Nostradamus' alleged biography. But from what we know, we can construct a fairly good picture of the man behind the prediction. Michel de Nostradamus was born on either the 14th or 21st of December 1503. Religious tensions were endemic of French society in this period, and Nostradamus himself experienced these tensions firsthand. Born a Jew, Nostradamus was baptized as a Catholic. These religious circumstances played an important role in his work for 2 reasons. Firstly, many have pointed to his access to ancient Jewish texts as a direct precursor to his later incarnation as a diviner and seer. Secondly, some have argued that fear of a visit from the Spanish Inquisition forced Nostradamus to hide or modify the index dates given to his predictions. With index dates codified, many today resign the predictions of Nostradamus to the annals of novel history and write off any similarities to real-world events as merely coincidental. But the eerie similarities to some of the most profound events in modern history are often impossible to ignore. Towards the end of his predictions, Nostradamus made claims about the arrival of the 3 antichrists. But these aren't antichrist in the traditional sense. In the English tradition, the key term anti is understood as meaning both opposite to and equal to. Thus, English understandings of Antichrist refer to he who is the equal and opposite counterpart to Christ. However, the French version of the term is antichrist, ante in this context meaning simply before. Therefore, Nostradamus predicted not 3 equal and opposites to Christ, but 3 arrivals, which would mark key points before the end of days. As predicted by Nostradamus, each arrival would be worse than the last, eventually leading to the apocalypse and return of Christ. But who are these antichrists? What did Nostradamus actually say about them? To find out, we need to delve into the quatrains. Nostradamus buries his first Antichrist prediction deep in historical context, situated after a number of quatrains which predicted the French Revolution and birth of the French Republic. Many believe Nostradamus' first Antichrist is none other than Napoleon Bonaparte. The first Antichrist is claimed to be more fire than blood, a direct reference to Napoleon's character and lineage, coming to power as a soldier rather than from the nobility. Many have even argued that the first line references Napoleon by name. Pau, né, Laurent could stand for Napoleon Roy, derived from the Corsican-style spelling of his name, which translates to Napoleon King. Nostradamus' predictions about Napoleon continue, dedicating a whopping 40 of his quatrains, or a sum total of 5% of the entire canon, to the ruler. Napoleon ruled for 9 3/4 years, lasting from the 2nd of December 1804 to the 6th of April 1814. the thin one, Nostradamus writes, will reign without let for 9 years, predicting the exact length of Napoleon's leadership. Nostradamus also went on to predict Napoleon's death and the aftermath of his life and legacy with eerie precision. The former French emperor and king of Italy, Napoleon Bonaparte, here referred to as the Latin monarch, died on the 5th of May 1821 on the island of St. Helena. Although those he will have sheltered during his reign were persecuted after his death, the fire of Napoleon's legacy grew abroad, particularly in England, where he came to attain a sort of quasi-heroic status. Contemporary commentators have been quick to add that each of Nostradamus' antichrists were supposed to be exceeding in their destructive capability and evil. Historical accounts of Napoleon vary, with some historians praising his reforms with great enthusiasm. For this reason, many have claimed that Nostradamus wrote of the rise of Joseph Stalin in these quatrains. Napoleon's violent and destructive legacy is clear. However, despite his soldiers' loyalty, he was careless with their lives and was responsible for more death than any man before him. Despite this undeniable evil, from historical accounts, we can expect Nostradamus' second Antichrist to be far worse. According to Mario Reading, one figure certainly fits the bill, with a whopping 30 quatrains dedicated to the life, deeds, and legacy of Adolf Hitler. Among Nostradamus scholars, the second Antichrist is often referred to as Hister. Hister is largely taken as a simple coded reference to the name Hitler. However, the reference goes far deeper than that. Hister was the Latin name for the Danube River on which Hitler was born. Nostradamus hid clues throughout his quatrains, filling them with historical references that would only accrue meaning once the event was understood. The river symbolism is expanded on in the first line of this quatrain, clearly referencing the Red Army crossing the Elbe and Vistula rivers in 1945 on its final push into Germany. Similarly, the quatrain appears to reference one of Hitler's closest allies, the great man who was hung on meat hooks. This appears to be a coded reference to Mussolini, who was shot and hung on display in the charred metal frame of a firebombed patrol station. Hitler's rise is charted in vivid detail, from the declaration of the Third Reich to the Stavisky affair, the Night of the Long Knives, and even the abdication of King Edward VIII. Nostradamus' predictions of Hitler and the Second World War even go as far as to describe specific events and the details of total war. He is reported to have predicted the carpet bombing of Germany and occupied France, vexed to death by all those who did not worship fire. Interestingly, Provence, Naples, Sicily were also 3 cities destroyed or partially destroyed during the Allies' firebombing campaign. Some even argue that Nostradamus wrote of the horrors of the Holocaust. One quatrain reads, "Brothers and sisters held captive in various places, they pass near the monarch. He looks at them with alert attention." The quatrains Nostradamus dedicated to Hitler seem to ratchet up a notch in his depictions of pure evil. Unlike Napoleon, none of Hitler's legacy is seen in a positive light today. But what do these two figures have in common? Well, they both famously stirred and manipulated notions of nationalism during their rise to power. As a result, both reveled in the cult of the infallible leader, which developed around them. Therefore, we now have a template by which we can establish the third and final Antichrist, known to reading as the one still to come. In line with the Nostradamus canon, we can expect the one still to come to be one of the most violent and destructive figures in human history. Dedicating 32 quatrains to the mysterious figure, Nostradamus lays out exactly where this Antichrist figure will come from, what he will do, and what state, if any, the world will be left in. Despite the fact that this quatrain is set in the year 2010, This is but an advance warning of the coming of the third Antichrist. Nostradamus offers us an advanced warning with a passage set in the year 2010. In this passage, he explicitly states that the Antichrist will be worse than any man before him. He tells us that the third Antichrist, like the Messiah he is the evil counterpart to, will be born in poverty, but from that poverty he will take supreme power, and he will tyrannize and bankrupt his people. According to reading, Nostradamus predicts that the third Antichrist will be born in the year 2035. By the time he is 35, Nostradamus predicts that he will have managed to seduce a great army in the East, and that unless a great miracle occurs, the coming years will be very bleak indeed. Nostradamus warns us that the Antichrist will be greeted as the second coming of Christ, but the church will be mistaken. He writes, "There is great confusion around Easter time and a knife blow, preceded by an era of plague and peace." Nostradamus predicts that the year 1969 will see an asteroid strike the Earth. The effects of the incident, which destroyed great swaths of country, even antiquities and mighty foundations, are seen as a direct precursor to a global war. Nostradamus predicts that in this global war, great powers will face off. According to reading, these are the bipolar great powers, the United States of America and China. The global war will be unparalleled in its destruction, with great spears from the skies, potentially nuclear weapons used to destroy entire countries and kill many millions. From the ashes of this great and awful conflict will rise the third Antichrist, who will use the pain of his people to garner support. Friends will pretend that the adulterous one has a soul, while the land is horrible and black of aspect. Nostradamus predicts that the third Antichrist will bring about an era of barbarism and pain, which dissolves all the progress of humanity. Throughout this time, Nostradamus tells us that he will widen his power base and bring about great changes in world order, as well as ecological disasters. The legacy of the third Antichrist will be ever present, as our world is changed forever. Many historians have written off Nostradamus' predictions entirely as mere conjecture, but from even a broad look at Nostradamus, we can see that, at times, his quatrains seem to have predicted some key moments in modern history with terrifying accuracy. So, did Nostradamus have it right? Are we to be subjected to the evils of three exceedingly destructive antichrists? It is hard to say, but one thing is clear. If Mario Reading's interpretations are right, we won't have to wait long to find out. Enjoy the video? Leave a like and be sure to subscribe to the Intrigued Mind channel for more awe-inspiring historical content. See you next time!